Calling to order the Board of Commissioners in our Board of Commissioners and Tribal Council joint meeting. It is June the 5th, 2023. We have the in the room, Commissioners Hensley, Minty, and DeGroot, and we have our friends from the Klamath tribes joining us via Zoom. Welcome, everyone. So glad that you could all make it. This meeting was called. We received Chairman Dumont, we received your letter regarding some concerns there at Berkeley Springs, Hagglestein Park, with many names. We wanted to have, as quickly as possible, get back together, have a conversation about how we can address your concerns and come up with a plan as quickly as possible so that we can have the property managed in the best way possible that's in the best interest of our community. So thank you all so much for joining us. If you want to take a second and maybe reiterate any of those concerns or ideas that you may have, we also have our Parks Department is here with us as well. But Chairman Dumont, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Commissioner DeGroot. I appreciate it, and thank you, Commissioners, all of you. I really appreciate it. Appreciate that you called the meeting so quickly. I apologize, I was on a 10-day break, so I didn't respond to any of your emails leading up to this. And I only found out it was happening when I got here this morning, but I'm happy that it's happening, so thank you. The commissioners are all aware that Berkeley Springs, or Ditkos, is very important to us, both as an important cultural site, but also as a location, one of the only locations, if not the only location, where our endangered fish are able to reproduce in a healthy way and not be troubled by problems with water quality, etc. So it's very alarming to our members when there are campers there that don't understand how delicate the situation is as far as the fish perishing from the face of the earth. And so we get reports regularly of folks who are there bathing or doing their laundry in the springs, fishing in the springs, which I know is not under your control. We're working with the state on that. But just want to do whatever we can to make sure that those fish are able to reproduce and do what they need to do free of harassment. I learned this morning that there is now some algae present over the top of it, which hasn't normally been there. And we've got our OMBODOT team here. Maybe they can comment on that.
Yeah, just some of the discussions that we've had amongst various agencies that have some work in that area. We've talked to USGS, Fish and Wildlife Service, and others who regularly monitor that area. And USGS has monitored the fish in that spring pond for like 9 years, and this is the first year that they've really seen this kind of algal bloom in the pond. And so we've been trying to figure out what could be some of the causes for that additional algal growth. And, some of the ideas are related to, this being a pretty good water year. There might have been increase in the runoff of, from the surrounding land into the pond, that's high in nutrients. It could be anything related to the activities around the pond. They've mentioned some increased, use of the pond by the campers, and it's really unknown if they added anything to the pond. We also have questions as to whether the county is fertilizing the lawn. That could potentially add nutrients to the pond. So really don't know what's going on, but the water quality in the pond is kind of a unique feature that allows those fish to live year after year. So we have a little bit of a concern that water quality could degrade with that additional algal bloom activity.
Thank you, Mark.
So Commissioner, I don't know if that answers your question or not, or if you need more from us at this point.
No, I think what I'd like to do, and just have a conversation, right? All of us, about what's the best next steps. What's the best way to move into some type of management system for the park itself? We have looked into, as you know, one of the ways that we receive funding for our entire park system is through the Marine Board and having camping slots and things like that. We've looked into what our loss of revenues would be for our park system if we were to not manage that particular site in the same way. And Tom, I don't know if you could tell us.
Yeah, and if Tom could also just address, sort of, I think the chairman did a great job explaining sort of the concerns from their perspective. I'd love to hear from you because you go there on a pretty regular basis. Just could you set the scene for us of like what you see, what you've observed? Great, thank you.
And there's, I'm Tom Chris, and there's a lot of things I don't get to see, of course, but I do go there every morning, and I did notice the algae bloom as well. And also, we don't use anything on the lawns there or anything. We just mow it or weed eat it. And so I'm glad you brought that up because I wouldn't even have thought of that. But the camping has improved. However, the surrounding neighbors are complaining too, that with camping there, they see crime going on at their homes in that area around there. More of interest to you though is the water, and the water has changed. I'm not sure what's causing it either, but I'm glad that you guys have, either you're doing it, USGS is doing it, whomever is involved. We aren't, we would rather they didn't fish and use that water as well, but we don't have any jurisdiction or authority to stop that. But maybe between us, we can find out how we can achieve that. And as far as the numbers, the actual numbers for the Oregon Parks and Recreation, I talked to Mark Cohen about that, and it wouldn't be until 2024, but on an annual basis, we would lose 13,000 towards the parks if we did not have our parking or that park area. And then through the Oregon State Marine Board, we would lose $5,500. So that's the financial side of it. The other part of it is just a lot of people, as you're aware, that's a very convenient park, and it's the only one that qualifies for potable water because the well is good there. And so it's the only park in the county system that qualifies for the camping with potable water and all of that.
Gotcha.
Is there more?
No?
Let's go.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Nicely done.
So, Chairman, do you have thoughts on, and I hopefully you got the package I sent over. We've looked into quite a bit about, I don't think that we can do any kind of actual land transfer, but you and I have discussed, and I believe the meeting when we were all up in Chiloquin, at tribal headquarters, we had a conversation about maybe some type of long-term agreement where the tribes took over management of the park. Have you talked any more about that internally and what that could potentially look like?
Perry, I see your hand and get to you here just in a second. We've talked about it off and on repeatedly internally. We would need to do some more of that, and then we would have to, if we were to come to some agreement with you, it would require a formal decision at a tribal council meeting, a formal tribal council meeting. I guess I have one question that's relevant to what you're asking me, Commissioner, and that is back to the money discussion. So of that, it looks like a total of 24,000, if my math was right, from the two sources. How much of that goes right back into the overhead at the site, meaning for the restrooms and the whatever mowing is going on, that sort of thing?
I would look.
She has those numbers.
Oh.
So it's 18.5 is It's 18,500. This is Stephanie from Klamath County, and so we have that's our the amount we get, and then we have to do matching funds with that. So our budget's set up so that each park gets allocated a certain portion of our parks worker, so the fuel, that wage, the overhead with Tom, Dave, myself, and our accounting person. That all gets split out by each park, so that's allocated to each park. And I got the amount here for you.
Okay.
That we spent each year.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is if it's, if the expenses are gonna go away with the revenue,
Correct.
right? So what the net loss ends up being to the county.
I'm following what you.
Yep, you're 100% right, Chairman.
Okay,
It costs about $17,000 a year for the Hagelstein Park.
So it's almost a wash.
So it's about a wash.
So really, really, really a wash. So that's a good
Okay.
point.
okay, thank you. Would it be all right if Councilman Chalktoot asks this question?
100%, absolutely, yes, sir. You have to unmute, sir.
Barry's been on the bench for a while. He forgot how to.
Sometimes just holding down the space bar works.
Do you want to, if you have a question, you want to type it into the chat, Perry? So, are there other council members or OMBODOT staff that have a comment or a question? Yeah, go ahead, Natalie.
Thank you. So we talked about, or I think that transitioning to management was mentioned as well as long-term agreement. So what do those both look like? Room 214, anybody in there?
I think that that's a great question, and I don't mind jumping in. I think right now, I don't think we know what that looks like, right? And I think that's what this meeting is really meant to try to flush out. What does management transition looks like? What is a long-term plan for the site look like? But I think that, and I don't want to speak for the board, and I want you guys to please jump in. I think we're very concerned as well, the significance of the site, and we want to ensure that we're doing everything that we can as well to help with the one site that it looks like that's able to rear the fish. I mean, the fish being a good population of fish is good for our entire community.
Yeah. So I would add that, so for me, I think I would love to collaborate with you all on, maybe getting the fishing park banned, definitely tighter enforcement around that, so that if the powers that be say it must be done, it's done more properly. I definitely would prioritize that and would love to collaborate with you on that. I do feel generally that, I'm in favor of keeping public spaces public and open, and there aren't, as a community that is really trying to bolster tourism and outdoor recreation, I would hesitate to want to shut down camping or having any perception that people could camp and then they couldn't camp. But, I think it's all things that we could talk about. But I would be much in favor of maybe working to not allow fishing and really try to help the fish versus not allowing camping. Because I've up to this point been in favor of keeping public spaces open.
Thank you. I sorry I didn't specify. I just meant what it meant for you and your team, because I know that it could look different, or it will look different for us as tribal council. I had another question, but I let Perry know that I would speak his question. So Perry says that this is a sacred cultural site with a lot of different cultural elements. It has been severely impacted by the general public.
Maybe I can weigh in here real quick.
Yes, sir.
Perry, I actually made individual calls to the commissioners and told them actually more about the importance of the site to us than I would want to say publicly. And so they're very aware of how significant that site is for us and was for our ancestors. So they're aware of that. And also wanted to say, Commissioner, I understand what you're saying about public spaces. I guess I wasn't quite sure where you all were, if there was consensus or not about whether, you were wanting to think about the tribes taking over management of that. I think if there was agreement on your end, then we would need to have an internal discussion to make sure that we can handle that responsibility. But maybe if there's not agreement from the county commissioners, that discussion would be premature. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, I guess just looking to the board real quick, I would actually be in favor of working with the tribes to figure out some type of management transfer for Klamath tribes to take over management of that site. I think it's extremely important, and though while I totally understand your concerns, I think there's also maybe some from a community perspective, some overlying concerns. And
sure.
we can't, if the public has access to the water, we can't prevent them from fishing. They have a right to fish. So there is nothing that we could do by Oregon state law, as I understand it, that would prevent them from fishing in those waters if they have access to those waters.
So I think, Chair, to your question, I too would be in favor of hearing a proposal from the tribes of how you all might manage it, and I likely would be in favor of that. I'll just throw in there as a sort of a wild card thought too, is this board has also been working on trying to have perhaps some changes around Lake Iguana and working with the tribes on that. So maybe there's a way that there can be, again, some more collaboration around, I understand, I hear you about how sacred Haggleston is. I don't want to say I understand, because I don't want that to feel offensive, like, oh, she's saying she understands, and maybe so I won't say that, but I'll say I hear you, that it's a very sacred spot to you, and so I want to honor that. And then I also know that, we really do want to have your collaboration and a little more involvement from you on the work we want to do around Lake Iguana. So maybe there's a way to sort of put both of these wants together and collaborate more meaningfully on that.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't want you to think that our lack of attention to what's going on in Lake Iguana and the work that needs to be done there signals a lack of importance for us. It's just a matter of us having so much fire that it's hard for us to keep up. Mark, I see your hands up.
Yeah, Klamath County has been very supportive of our sucker recovery activities. I've been involved there for 30 years doing different projects at the park. 2010 was the last time we did the major restoration project there. We put in that meandering channel, took out a shallow pond. We currently have a grant process where we're evaluating some additional restoration options there at the park, and have been in communication with Tom and others with the county about our initial conceptual plans. But we think that there's even more opportunity to create habitat for the endangered Chuam and Cockatoo by creating additional ponds and like the lawn area up near the road access into that area. So just kind of wanted to, let you know about that process. And then also, part of the park is, owned by the adjacent landowner. So I'm not sure what kind of, input would need to be had from him if we were proposing work on the part of the park that he owns.
Sure. Mr. Hensley, you have anything?
So I am in complete support of transitioning management of Hagglesteen to the Klamath tribes, and am really interested in and I don't want this project to drag on the next 6 months. I'd really like to see in the next month what we can do to put our heads together to come up with a plan on what that transition looks like. So I'll commit to you that I'm 100% supportive, and I'm willing to put my head together with the commissioners and you to figure out what that plan looks like. But I'll reiterate one more time, government sometimes works at the speed of government, which annoys me. So I'd like this plan to work at the speed of business, and let's get this done.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Hensley. Yeah, we're not known for being lightning fast here either. So this is on our agenda for a work session this week. I will just, be upfront about this and say that my expectation is that the council is going to look to be as restrictive as possible, just because, the fish are in such peril, and the loss of them would be so devastating to us and to our future generations that it's really, it's a 5-alarm situation to do everything we can to protect them, and particularly at the one place that they're doing well. So as long as that's out there understood, and I understand we'd have to bring a proposal to you and get feedback from you, but I wanted to be upfront about that.
So would the tribes be willing, and I know we'll come up with a proposal, but I mean, I think it would need to be very transparent to the public then that the tribes were managing. So, I mean, I'm talking like signage and things that showed that it was a spot then managed by the tribes, and that way if people had feedback they could get it to the appropriate place, and instead of us at that point.
Good point.
I think we would both understand the politics involved and the need for those kinds of public comments to be directed our way, and we would also welcome the opportunity to share our history here with the larger public, including tourists. I actually think that a lot of the folks who are causing the problems there really don't understand what they're doing. And so we would be looking to, make sure that people understood why that place was so important, and how it functions ecologically, and why they need to not be doing things to the water that are going to cause us a problem. So yeah, I think that sounds consistent. And again, I'm speaking just for myself. There's 10 of us, but I'm getting pretty good at anticipating when people are going to object.
Well, Chairman, what I'll do is I'll commit to this. So if you can work with the council and your staff to come up with some type of a management proposal, we will take it up within a week.
Okay, I think that's wonderful. Yes.
Yeah, Stephanie, go ahead.
I have a question. So is that management and not maintenance, or is it both?
Both.
Both? Okay.
So it would be a transition away. We wouldn't be responsible for anything at the park anymore. We would step away, and it would be the responsibility of the Klamath tribes. There is there is some issue there, and I would just ask if you have questions about it. With the vault toilets and things that are there on property, those were provided by the State Marine Board, I believe.
Yes.
And if they're removed from the property, there's a whole process surrounding that. Tom Christ, who is here, who's been sharing with us, he's very familiar with that. So if you have questions about that process, please speak directly with him while you're developing your plan. Because if they are going to be removed and the public's not going to have access to those bathrooms, then there's a whole process to that because of how they were provided to us.
Understood.
Question.
Go ahead, Brad.
Did you say ball toilets, meaning everything's captured within those and those are pumped on, is that, they don't have no, because that could also explain whether or not you're getting some leaching of nutrients into the system.
Self-contained ball toilet?
They're
They are
self-contained,
self-contained,
and we pump them.
yes, correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Self-contained.
Okay.
Mark?
Yeah. Was the Marine Board also involved in investing in the boat launch? And is that also a requirement that
Yes.
public access is needed to launch boats there?
Correct.
Yes, it was. So if that's going to, if that's gonna change, then there's a process to work with the Marine Board on that as well.
And going back to the dollars again, because resources will necessarily need to be part of our internal discussion. I apologize for mixing up the numbers before. It was 13,000 and 5,500. Was the 13,000, was that state parks?
That's
Yeah.
Oregon Parks and yes,
Okay. And what about the 5,500?
that's from the Oregon State Marine Board.
Okay. So I'm just wondering if the tribes might be able to work with them as well, depending on, what kind of management plan we put in place. That'll be something for us to explore.
Probably.
Yep, it's all gonna depend on what type of access you are going to allow for the public to access those lands, the toilets, camping, waterways, all that kind of stuff.
Understood. Are there other questions on our side? Well, I just want to thank you again for the quick response and for recognizing how important this site is, Ditkos, for the Klamath tribes, and really appreciate the much improved, good relationship that we're developing with the county. So thank you all for that.
Ditto.
Yeah, same, Chairman. Thank you very much, and to
Thank
the
you.
entire council and your staff. Really look forward to this continuing to springboard into more and more and more that we can collaborate on. And I will just say, personally, the rehabilitation of the fish population of both the Cockatoo and the Quam is also extremely important to the county. I think it's important to everyone in our community, our ag community, everybody. A strong population of fish makes everybody's life better around here, right? So up and down the system. So you have my commitment to help you in any way I possibly can.
Thank you for that. I think Secretary Frost has a hand up.
I just, kind of coming back around about Lake Ewana. I just wanted to make sure that all the information, as we were waiting for information from there. And I'm sorry, I know my, message, but Mark, do you have information on Lake Ewana that you need? So we can engage on that?
We have, had conversations about, making sure that the consultants were, making use of all the very technical data that has been collected in the area in developing, the proposal for the work that, may be done. And, we just kind of emphasized that, any improvement in Lake Ewana has to address, conditions in the lower part of Upper Klamath Lake, and, any way we can participate in that discussion and provide information, is what we want to do.
Well, if I may, is there the potential of having, because we had a meeting, our economic development director, that particular company that's working on that proposal, but there's others, and Fish and Wildlife and the city of Klamath Falls met, it was either last Thursday or Friday, to just talk about the SIS Bio project is one thing. So let's say it's in this lane, but there's also a lot of other things that could be done. And we have funding right now and a real deep commitment to like, let's do something exciting on Lake Ewana. And is there, maybe, might I be able to have, or might our board be able to have a point person or somebody that we can always call on of, if we're having a meeting related to that, that can help us move things along or help us at least make sure that we're keeping you all in the loop, because I feel like I never really know who to reach out to and who's the best person. But it would have been really helpful to have someone at the meeting last week, because it was very solution oriented and it wasn't just about SIS Bio. But there's a deep commitment and some funding attached to it to try to get something done within the next year. And so might I have, or might our board have a point person that we can always go to?
So I think that's entirely appropriate. Again, I just want to say it's not a lack of concern. It's just so much going on that we're having a hard time keeping up. Mark, I don't know if you've got someone in your crew that can commit to that.
Yeah, I just was thinking that if they coordinated with Tanea, then she could contact somebody from our department, contact me, and I can participate if that's appropriate.
I think it's absolutely appropriate, but I also know you're doing two jobs at the moment. And I want to not to harp on anything, but of course, Commissioner Minty, we do think, right, that the lake water quality is fundamental to Lake Ewana water quality. And so, so much of our efforts are on the lake. We think that would, of course, pay big dividends as far as the water quality in Lake Ewana, which is not to minimize the fact that there are things down there that can be done as well. So we will find a way to participate in those meetings. How often are they happening?
We're not on necessarily like a perfect cadence, but I would say every 2 weeks. And there was talk of, okay, now it's really go time, because at least some of the funding is American Rescue Plan dollars that need to be, they're already allocated, but they need to be spent by a certain time. And we just have a real strong commitment to doing something positive down there, and time is now becoming important.
Sure. Well, it sounds like our interim director says we can do it. So if we get it to Tanea, and she'll make sure that Mark is able to get somebody to those meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really
Yeah.
appreciate that. It's significant resources that the county has obligated there. And so being able to move that project forward is going to be important for us to do quickly. It's $1 million.
Yeah. Well, we've got chiels, we got salmon going to be coming up the river some one of these days, so we need to get that cleaned up. So we appreciate your effort.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else as we wrap up?
Good to see you guys.
All right.
Thanks.
And we look forward to seeing the plan.
Yeah, Subkecha, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.